There we go. Okay. And everybody has mics now, so that's wonderful. So we're going to jump right in and get started. Jan, I'm so happy to see you. Tina and I have been on American Thought Leaders with you, and some of the work that you're doing, really letting Americans know the truth on a lot of issues. Educating the public is very important. Oftentimes I've heard it said, oh, the culture wars. But I do believe we're in the middle of a cultural revolution in America. What part is legacy media playing in the culture wars?
Wow, that is an incredible question. I mean,
Mike? Oh, I'm on.
Okay, excellent. So media plays a pivotal central role in, I guess, what we call the culture war, or more grandly, a revolution, I suppose. I mean, it basically sets the frame. I'm talking about the legacy media here, right? In many cases, we end up discussing the things that this large messaging apparatus, all these different groups together, can tell us we need to discuss, and it requires attention, right? And what's really interesting, something that I've been looking at more recently, is media have become, incredibly polarized, right? And there's all sorts of reasons for this phenomenon happening. But there's a Manhattan Institute scholar named Andre Mir who has done some incredible work. I recommend you look him up, where he would say that actually polarization is the software of today's media. Like, it's not just that media is polarizing, that it functions through polarization. And of course we could talk about it a little more, but that's an incredibly disturbing reality, if indeed it's the case, and I've been convinced that it is.
Would anyone else like to weigh in on that? Adele?
Sure. I think, well, for starters, thank you for having me. And Moms for Liberty is such a great organization, and what you have built up. I took a detour from journalism in 2010 because I was so mad about what was going on in my kids' schools. And so, I know Moms for Liberty didn't exist, but truly one of the last straws is when they dropped President's Day and the study of Washington and Lincoln for Diversity Day. And so that took me on a journey similar to many of the women here. But as the media landscape right now is very polarized, but it is also, we live in a dystopian time. You have the mainstream liberal media that has joined with social media, big tech, with the government and with the Democratic Party. And with that, they have taken, you must have allegiance to a narrative. If you deviate from that narrative, as many of the people in this room know, you are instantly under some new things. Cancel culture can kick in. And people live in fear of this new censorship industrial complex of these four major institutions hooking up together for a narrative. And we feel it every day in our schools. I mean, think about all of the times you go to a PTA meeting and you navigate on what you can say, how you say it, the terms you use. It's the same back to school night. Everyone's going to be going to back to school night shortly, and it is the same thing where you have to watch your speech and you live a little in fear and cancel culture, and that is a consequence of the polarized media.
So, Sebastian, you have people on your show often that many people in America don't know about yet. You break a lot of ground when it comes to getting information out, and you're having a conversation with the nation every day. So, any thoughts on where we are as far as the culture and media and your role in it?
Well, first things first, thank you to you and Tina. I thought I misheard something yesterday when we were listening to Rob, and you said that we started this 4 years ago, and Katie was next to me, and I said, that's wrong, right? It can't be just 4 years ago. And it is. You guys are incredible. What you have achieved in the last 4 years is amazing. Now, before I answer the question, how many men do we have in the room? Hands up, please, men. Chris, you can put your hand up. Just look around how elite you are. Okay, there's a handful of you, but I want to say one thing. I got you all beat. I don't think any one of you have had 50 members of Moms for Liberty at your home racing cardboard boats through your swimming pool yesterday, okay? That's me, so I'm ready for the medal. I survived, okay? Look, let's be honest. Where do people get their information today? And let's not talk about the media as the establishment media. Who reads newspapers anymore? How many people under the age of 40 watch cable or even have a cable package? Media is social media today, and we have to understand how enthralled to the establishment it is. COVID, let's just talk about COVID, or Hunter Biden. We weren't allowed, I still remember as if it were yesterday, October before the election, my friend Miranda Devine blows this story on the Hunter Biden laptop on the New York Post, and I copy the URL, and I want to tweet it out. And I press send on my phone, and it refuses to tweet. They made it impossible for Americans to tweet the story. Why? Because the people in the swamp told them, oh, that's Russian disinformation, you can't have that get out there. What do we have? We have Newsmax, Salem, Fox, not so much, okay? We have the Daily Caller, Daily Wire, but it's a fraction. So my message to you is what the great Andrew Breitbart taught us. If you have one of these, if you have a phone, guess what? You're a journalist. You're a journalist. You're a truth teller. You have more computing power, video, audio capacity than a whole journalist team 20 years ago. You tell the truth, because that's how we win.
I think that's such an amazing point. I have a very good friend named James Dixon. He's in Michigan. He just started a podcast called The Michigan Enjoyer. He sent me a T-shirt. I should have worn it for this panel. Oh, geez. It says, make local journalism great again. And so I think that's such a wonderful point. My experience, and maybe Adele, you can speak to this, was education reporters often have so much on their plate. They could be covering a region where they have 2, 3, 4 school board meetings happening a night. And so the idea that they could even possibly cover the school board meetings and share the information with parents is very challenging, but parents deserve accurate information so they can make good decisions for their kids. Have you run into this?
Transparency is so important. I'm sure many people have seen this. The group that's involved with the school board, who's in power, or the people at the school, they hide things. And so really, to some extent, everyone's job in here is to expose and to disclose the kinds of things they're doing. You've seen that when you show them books that are half porn, that people say, I don't want that in the library, and they don't consider it book banning. I couldn't agree with Sebastian more that there's lots of ways to communicate. Places like the Daily Caller, we like story ideas, we like op-eds, we will cover things like your school board races. And so you need to reach out, and so that is one way, is to try to reach people to get your message across. And censorship is a real thing. So when you start talking about transgender things and other things, the social media does censor our content all the time. I have many examples of that. But there is, a hopeful message, which is 75 million people voted for Donald Trump in 2020, and with that, there is a way to get a message out. One of the things, Sebastian's with Salem Media. Salem the talk radio is right of center. Conservative talk radio in general is conservative, so try to get to your local radio. People are listening to radio. They are in their cars driving, and that is a good avenue as well. And email. They haven't figured out how to censor our emails, and emails are a great way to communicate. So,
you mentioned President Trump. Jan, Sebastian, I'd like you both to weigh in. Extremely concerning, the censorship we see around the assassination attempt of President Trump. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for the future of media and for our kids, our children?
Well, first things first, let's talk about Butler, Pennsylvania. As my Salem colleague Larry Elder said, if you tell half the nation for 8 years that a politician is Hitler, what do you think's going to happen? Right? Of course they're going to try and kill him. We had what? We had Obama, we had Clinton in Chicago say the following: Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. I mean, that's what you say about the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons. That's what you say about, ISIS. And they're saying it about a man who, as you said, got 74 million votes. So of course it happened. I wrote a piece in Breitbart, the assassin that had to happen. Of course it happened. But we're what, 7 weeks away? And it's as if it never happened. It's been memory holed, more effectively than George Orwell could ever imagine, deep sixed. We're talking about what? We're talking about what he did at Arlington Cemetery on Monday to respect and honor our dead as Joe Biden was on a beach and Kamala Harris was AWOL. That's the story, not the fact that a 20-year-old shot him in the head, a 20-year-old who has no social media footprint, zero, and whose body was released for cremation without the coroner's permission, and who used 3 international encrypted messaging apps. No social media footprint, but 3 encrypted apps. The media doesn't care because they tried to kill him. Let's be clear. It wasn't one crazy 20-year-old. They tried to kill him. That's why they're burying it.
I worry, we're watching media literacy bills being pushed across the United States of America, search engines being filtered for children in schools. Jan, our moms and dads are I'll let you weigh in on that in 1 second. I do have a question for Jan. You've told me before that you're very impressed with our moms because they try to do work in their communities to build understanding and to try to make the issues that oftentimes are made polarizing in the news more real and to start conversations. So I would love to just hear more about what you've observed around the United States when it comes to Moms for Liberty.
Well, the fundamental problem, I think, is even, what Seb and you've said is critically important, but just the entire business models of the media today function, instead of to share information, okay, is to validate biases. That's what I've been convinced of, okay? And you've experienced this, okay, in your communities. You guys, should I redo that? No, so you guys work, and I should take a moment to sort of say how amazing the work of Moms for Liberty is. You guys work where the rubber meets the road in the local communities, and you have to face people that in some cases have dramatically different views because of this polarization that's set up in the media, these information ecosystems that are feeding people very specific visions and can completely memory hole, just like Seb was saying, an assassination attempt on the president, right? So, but you guys actually do something very interesting, and I've talked with a number of you recently. Kelly Shankowski, she was telling me something about something called Bay Area Speak. Who's familiar with Bay Area Speak? Anyway, what Bay Area Speak is, you try to talk to people around issues that they can actually connect, that you can connect on, right? And Natalia Muracher, she's doing a documentary, for example, on school closures, right? This is going to be coming out pretty soon. And school closures, she figured out, are the issue that a lot of people can get together on. And a lot of people are aligned, even when they're completely polarized around other issues. And that's the way in, that's the door to reach those people that are seemingly unreachable. We have How to Have Impossible Conversations author over here as well, James Lindsay. This type of thing is very, very important. Okay, so this is what I'm inspired by this work. You mentioned local media, right? Local journalists are different in a lot of cases, right, than journalists in the blob, so to speak, because you have to be accountable to your neighbor later. If you wrote something crazy and something totally off the wall, then you have to face somebody about that, right? So in a way, I think you started talking about that. The rebirth of local journalism is critical, I think, to seeing us through this kind of insane, self-polarizing system of media that we have right now.
Adele, did you want to speak to the media literacy piece in schools?
I would like to speak to media literacy. I think one thing that people need to really be aware of here is schools have part of their curriculum, particularly in middle school, as children get old enough to start using social media, they start into this media literacy campaign. It is by and large run by something called Nucella. It is founded in 2013. Nucella is the primary media literacy curriculum. If you are at a school board and you start to hear that word, the bells and whistles should go off. It is a, if people want media, you kind of want media literacy. You think your child is getting old enough to navigate social media, and you're scared they're going to come upon human trafficking or porn or all kinds of other things. And so it is a natural instinct to maybe think that this curriculum is okay. The problem is they only push the New York Times and the Washington Post. They would no more mention the Daily Caller News Foundation than they would never mention any of the media outlets that we work for. And so it is a way to start early, indoctrinate them that the corporate liberal media is the only safe place to go to get your news and information. And that is a form of censorship to limit the amount of content that you can use. They then require that often when your kids get old enough to do history papers and other things, that they go online, they can only use these sources that they approve, and they are not viewpoint, there's not diversity of viewpoint, and as you can imagine, it doesn't include conservative ideas. And so these are all sometimes put under the banner of media literacy, but it affects the kinds of research they can do and the kinds of content that is brought into the classroom, and it is all opposed to conservative viewpoints. So that's this is a pet peeve of mine. So I'm
that's
really
such
glad
wonderful information. I'd love to have you on our Joyful Warrior podcast to really dig in there so that parents can really be armed with the information they need to make sure their kids have access to good information to write papers and to work in school. So we're going to follow up on that, okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
Sebastian, I'm hopeful. We have a lot of media covering today, the Moms for Liberty Summit. You know I take all the interviews. Sometimes the media team even gets mad at all the interviews I'm willing to take, but I do take all of them because I think it's important. RFK endorsed President Trump. And the day, yeah, we can clap for that. Who doesn't want to make America healthy again? Washington Post called the day after. They wanted to do an interview, and it was a health reporter. First time I've been able to speak to a health reporter. And she asked me really good questions about parents' concerns about our children's development and their mental health. And I'm just wondering, as you see RFK or Tulsi or even Sean Theory this morning, as you see more Democrats stepping up and questioning the establishment within the Democrat political system, do you think that the media is going to start to be a little bit more open to some of the opinions that we might have?
Never. Never. They have, I'm glad to hear your experience. That woman will be fired eventually. If she publishes those things,
I haven't seen the article yet,
No,
you're right.
I was going to say the same thing. Wait until you see it.
If she puts them in the article, she will be fired.
Really?
There's an orthodoxy. So let me give you an example. I was in the White House, myself, my wife, we were presidential appointees, and the Washington Post dogged me for months to do a long piece on me. And I told them, I don't talk to the press on the record or off the record. You hate my boss, you hate America first, why would I help you? I mean, it's insane. It's like giving your enemies ammunition. I don't do that. And then my wife said, well, look, they're going to write it anyway, so talk to the Post. So at least you can influence it a little bit. I said, okay. So I talked to this Post reporter for 2 hours. Next Friday, 2,000-word hit piece drops. I mean, literally just Nazi this, Nazi that, blah, 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 blah. And I get a phone call from Australia. I don't know if you remember this guy, David Kilcullen, one of the smartest military minds in the world, New Zealand officer, was advisor to David Petraeus in Afghanistan and Iraq. And Dave is a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He wrote The Accidental Guerrilla. And I'm in the White House. He calls me up from Australia. I think he's visiting Australia. And he says, hey, Seb, I saw the piece in the Washington Post. That guy called me up and spoke to me for an hour and a half. But he didn't quote me. And I said, Dave, did you say anything crappy about me? No, because you're a great bloke. Well, that's the point. They just want to destroy you. You have to understand what Rob said last night. This is spiritual warfare, and they are on the side of the devil. If you work for an organization that is okay with the mutilation of young girls in the name of health, you are evil incarnate. I'm sorry, it is that stark. And to quote my rabbi, I'm a cradle Catholic, but Dennis Prager is my rabbi, okay? There are three types of people in the world. Those who fight for the truth, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing, who are actually on the side of the devil. Let's be clear here. If you are doing nothing, you are complicit. That's why you are here. God bless every single one of you, but the establishment is unsalvageable. My colleague from the White House right now, my boss in the White House, is sitting in Danbury Federal Prison in Connecticut. Steve Bannon. Why? Because he's a conservative with a very, very powerful podcast. He's a political prisoner. I'm an immigrant to this country whose father was a political prisoner. And I never, ever thought I would say America will have political prisoners. Peter Navarro was one. Steve Bannon is one today. We cannot compromise with these people because they want to destroy you and your families.
So I never like to retreat from a battle. Those who know me know that I will always try to rise to the occasion. We're raising the next generation of patriots in America, Jan. And, you know, kids are thinking about, what am I going to do with my life when I grow up? What will I some words of maybe how our kids might be able to change the landscape of media as we move forward.
If I can just follow up on what
Sure.
Seb said just a little bit. I think because of this polarizing nature in media, a lot of us imagine that there's this whole segment of people out there who maybe believe the New York Times, believe these media, but are really not actually all that different from a lot of the people here, right? There's some people who are activists and are looking to, you know, undermine Western civilization, things like that. I'm not talking about those people. But what's been on my mind lately is and that's why I'm inspired by the people here, this is what we were talking about, is how do we reach those people? Because I think we have to, and we can't imagine, like, you know, in the Matrix movie, that all the people that might not know, aren't as aware of reality as we are the enemy, because they're not. Most of them are not, some of them maybe. Right? So how do we do that? And you know, what keeps me up at night is how we do that as a media, because this polarizing nature of media kind of, you talk to what works is you talk to the audience in the language they want to hear, and that sells. But we actually need to, I think it's much more valuable to talk to the people who don't yet know. But I don't know the answer to this. But perhaps some of the hints of how to do this aren't exactly in the kinds of work that you guys have been doing and trying to kind of bridge that gap a bit, right? If I can say that, right? I forget the question now.
No, that's okay. We actually have reached the end of the panel, and I want to make sure that Sebastian does the important work that he does talking to the American people. And I want to say thank you to all of you for helping to give Moms for Liberty members a voice. We care so much about our children, and we absolutely love America, and we are trying to change the hearts and the minds and the culture. So thank you to all of you for always giving us that opportunity. A round of applause for our panel today, please.